Welcome to the realm of astrology. This is your daily horoscope for 15th July 2021, which is a Thursday. But before we begin, I request you to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so that you can be notified every time I post a video. And for those of you who are watching me for the first time, I also do weekly video horoscopes. I do monthly horoscopes and monthly sun rising sign horoscopes that you can watch on my YouTube channel. Now, that being said, let's talk about what's happening in the astrology today. Now, the first thing is something positive, and it is the Sun Neptune trine. They're making a 120-degree angle, which is considered positive in astrology. Now, this is a moment where we can feel very spiritually aligned in our identity. And why is that? Because the Sun is our soul, it is our consciousness, it is our identity, it's who we are becoming, right? And what is Neptune? Neptune is the spiritual planet. Neptune is the most magical planet. So at this point, we may feel very aligned spiritually in our identity. We may say, hey, whoever I'm becoming, that's my spiritual calling as well. I feel spiritually connected. So that's most likely how this energy will manifest. However, Neptune is also a planet of confusion, of delusions. So there might be some confusion connected to your identity or who you're becoming, but I don't think that's the case simply because these planets are in a positive alignment. I feel it's the first scenario where we feel like whoever we are becoming is in alignment with our spiritual path, with our spiritual calling. So that's what's happening today. And this happens at about 1:30 a.m. Pacific time, right? So that's the first thing. Now, the second, and before I move on, I would also like to mention that Neptune is retrograde. It's covering area which it has already covered before. So whatever this energy is about feeling spiritually aligned with who we are becoming, we've seen this in the past. It's nothing new. We may be approaching it from a different perspective, or it may be showing up in a slightly different manner, but we've seen these glimpses. Perhaps who we are becoming is not something new, but we've been working on it for a while. It could be something as simple as that. And maybe at that point also you felt that, okay, yeah, whoever I'm becoming, this is who I'm meant to be spiritually, for example. And now you're in the second pass, it's more like, yeah, okay, I feel it more. So that's the energy. And the next important thing is that the moon is going to enter the sign of Libra, right? There we go. The moon has entered the sign of Libra, and this is 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. And the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. And when it does, the focus in our life, the energies in our life shifts in very subtle ways. In Virgo, we were focused on planning, organizing, analyzing things, focused on very mundane activities, day-to-day things, day-to-day activities, things like that. Even health and job and diet and exercise, all those are Virgo things. And the energy could have been very stressed out because Virgo is the sign that rules stress. But now in Libra, we are going to be focused on our relationships. Now, these are the legal relationships we have, including your spouse, including your marriage. These could be in-laws as well, any legal relationship you have, and business partnerships are legal relationships, so those as well, legal issues as well. So for the next 2.5 days, we will be focused on these things. And Libra is a sign that enjoys art, right? It enjoys beauty. So in these 2.5 days, we might be doing that as well, enjoying some music, enjoying some beauty, enjoying some art, things like that. But the focus is relationships, legal relationships. And the moon here is going to do a few things. We'll talk about those. But before we get to that, another important thing happens, and that's about at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. So let's talk about that. And Chiron's gone retrograde. There. You can see it's in red. Now, if I move up the chart, you'll see. Okay. So this is 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Chiron, the 12:55 is written in black font. And I move it up an hour, and by 10:30, it's in red, right? It's in red. So it's gone retrograde. And now let's talk about what a retrograde is. A retrograde is when a planet appears to move backwards from the Earth's perspective. It's not actually moving backwards, but it appears to be so. And now Chiron has gone retrograde, and we already have Pluto retrograde, Saturn in retrograde, Jupiter in retrograde, Neptune in retrograde. The only outer planet that's direct right now is Uranus. That's it. And next month it will go retrograde as well. So Chiron going retrograde means what? First of all, Chiron is our deepest wound, right? It's our deepest wound. It's also how we heal that wound. But the healing with Chiron feels like a wounding itself. It's like it heals us rather, by digging that wound deeper and deeper and deeper, till we reach a point where we say, hey, that used to bother me, not anymore. No, it's not being numb. No, it's not being ignorant. No, I've not stopped caring. I've just healed. It doesn't bother me. But it used to bother me a lot. And now as Chiron goes retrograde, that active healing process has stopped, right? Which means that active process of feeling wounded, although you're healing, has stopped. Now this is the time where we will review that healing, where we will imbibe that healing fully, where we will view that healing from a different perspective. Perhaps that healing process was viewed as something that really hurt you, for example. But now as Chiron is retrograde, you may approach that healing or whatever you went through from a different mindset and say, yeah, that felt painful, but in some ways I feel healed. But this is not the end of it, right? Because we know as the planets are retrograde, they will cover some amount of that again, those degrees again. So we might have to review these things again in the future when Chiron goes direct. So some things, not all, the degrees that it covers again. Okay, so that's the next thing. Now let's talk about the last thing, almost the last thing for today. And I want to keep it as short as possible. Okay, so I'm going to move up the chart, and this happens in the evening at about 7:30 p.m. Okay, so the moon here is going to square Mercury, 90-degree angle. Now this is a conflict. 90-degree angles represent friction, they represent change, they represent some sort of conflict. Some adjustment is usually required to overcome this situation, right? And in this case, the moon are emotions, which is very much about the legal relationships in our life at this point. And Mercury our mind, which is introspecting right now because it's in Cancer. There's some conflict. Perhaps we're thinking and we're communicating, and we're feeling like, okay, some adjustment needs to be made connected to how I feel about this legal relationship. Or mentally, you may not be feeling very great about that relationship. Or there may be some emotion that may need to be resolved, or communication that may need to happen. So this is that energy. And the key here is to make that little change, make that little adjustment, whatever it is, so that your emotions about your relationships, legal relationships, can align with your communication, your thinking, your mind, your mental energy, basically. Yeah. And this is the last thing I'll talk about. And the moon is going to move on and make a positive aspect. Okay, this is about almost midnight, 11:30 p.m. And the moon here at 9 degrees has begun to trine the North Node. All right, now this is a positive aspect. At this point, we may be feeling very good about the goals that we have set, the path that we are on. And there could be an emotional element to this, but it could also be that the relationships in our life are slowly aligning. One more step in the alignment process with our goals, with where we are headed. And the moon here is in a 2-degree orb to Saturn, trining it. It will come exact soon. So this is a grand trine in air, and this is a great alignment because trines facilitate things. And this is a point where emotionally, or rather some relationships in our life, are aligning with our long-term goals, right? Moon emotions about relationships, North Node our goals, where we are headed, Saturn the long term. It could also be a decision that comes about that helps us in our long-term goals. But all this will happen easily since they're all in a trine. And then this is technically going to happen tomorrow, but the moon's going to move on and it is going to trine Saturn. So it's happened at about 3 a.m. Pacific time. Saturn retrograde and moon, they're trining. And this is a point where we can take a decision, or we can define things in our life that are for the long run. And this decision, this definition to things, and it could very well be something legal, a legal relationship, can come quite easily. But we've seen glimpses of this, whatever this decision is, or whatever we are deciding about in the past, because Saturn is retrograde, bringing up the past. So that's all the energy for today. Now I'll give a brief background on what's been happening in the astrology. And the first thing is that, and these are the currents we deal with on an everyday basis. Saturn and Uranus are squaring. They're squaring after 21 years. And this energy is asking us to embrace the new and get rid of the old that's not serving us. It's also about finding and embracing your unique self. So that's the energy, okay? And we'll feel this all year, even into next year. The second thing that we are building right now is the Saturn-Jupiter cycle that started in December of 2020 after 20 years. So we're in a new cycle, a cycle that will stay with us for 20 years. And for the next 2 years, we will lay the foundation for that cycle. The third thing is the Saturn-Pluto, and this happened in Jan of 2020. So a long time ago, but they ended a cycle of 38 years and started a new one that will stay with us till 2053. So a long time, right? And we're still, I believe, understanding that cycle fully, trying to lay the foundation for it, and we will continue to do so. And the last thing are the nodes. The North Node is in Gemini and the South Node is in Sag. Now the nodes are karmic and can bring up karmic events, and they were in the same placement between 2001 and 2003. So they might bring up karmic theme situations similar to that of 2001, 2003, so that you can review them, close them out, or take them, into the future. That's all the background. Now I will pick a card for today and then we'll close out the reading. Says truth be told. And I think this card ties, for me, it always ties into the Saturn-Uranus square energy, which is about removing our mask, being our authentic self, embracing our authentic self. And I think today is a day that will help us, especially with the Sun-Neptune trine, because we will feel more aligned in our identity with our spiritual path, right? There'll be an alignment, and that may help us into embracing our unique self. So I think that's what this energy is. And I hope you guys enjoyed this reading. Do hit the subscribe button, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.